Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to review a game, Ephemeris, a science fiction role-playing game created by J. Allen Erwine and Joshua Kviz, K-V-I-Z. Kviz, I'm not sure how to say that last name. Now, this was kind of interesting because when I started reading it, I had bought this cold. I saw it on Amazon. It was a price that I was willing to pay. I needed to bring up the quantity to get some free shipping, so I'm like, okay, I'll buy it blind. Sometimes I get lucky, sometimes I don't. So I knew almost nothing about this. I think I may have heard about the game at one point in the past on some passing reference on a thread, but pretty much cold. So there's nothing on this book anywhere, not in the outside, not on the inside, that says it's based on the D20 OGL. But this game is based on the OGL, the D20 system. It's just no longer the D20 system. They've decided to base that on die sixes, which makes it much more approachable. And my wife, who is essentially a complete newcomer to role-playing games, she's played like 2 or 3 times, I think, mentioned that, well, making it D6s makes, that, it's a whole lot more approachable, because everybody's got those in the house, right? You could actually play this game with a couple of set of Yahtzee's dice, and you'd have all the dice you'd need, though you might want more than that for multiple players. So they base everything on D6s. Stats are based on 2 die 6. And so you're going to get a spread, between 2 and 12, though racial modifiers can bring those up and down. The stats in question are intelligence, common sense, wisdom, charisma, sanity, that's new, strength, agility, dexterity, and endurance, constitution. Now the sanity is used in a number of different ways. It's used to, if you do build-in cybernetics, so essentially to humanity score. It's used if you are traveling in hyperspace, because hyperspace apparently has a mind-altering effect on people in a negative way. It also, I believe, there are a number of psionic-type abilities which can affect sanity. Now, the classes, again, they're trying to make this be science fiction. So they got 5 alien races and classes that are all based around science fiction tropes. Now, there's humans, which are the baseline human. They are considered the generic race. Then you've got a race of bipedal dinosaurs, a race of strange humanoids that have spiracles sticking out of their torso, which project air downward and allow them to fly. Which I have to give them points for originality. I have never seen that particular mechanism used for a flying creature, ever. But it's weird, and I'm frankly not sure that it, even in a science fiction game, makes a lot of sense. We have an insect race, a race of gaseous beings that can coalesce themselves into a hard physical form like us. But they can take different forms. So they can actually look like a human, and then over a fairly lengthy process, it takes them days to do this, they could change themselves into another of the races. Though it's not a perfect translation, and they would look very human-like, but not be exact. And then you have a race, which I thought made me smile, which is kind of snail-based, which I thought was kind of cool. Then you have, you have the classes in here, which are all based around the classic science fiction tropes. So you have the bandit. You have the cyber wizard. And yes, they called them cyber wizards in this game. Why they did not call them psionics or scions or psychics, I'm not sure. But they called them cyber wizards, which made me think of Babylon 5. They also have nanists, people who use nanotechnology built into their system. And these 2 classes, the Cyber Wizard, which is a wizard version, science fiction version, and the nanist, which is essentially the divine caster of the group, because they have healing and harming spells, they're the divine casters. I would have very much, if I had been doing this, I would have based this on psionics. I would have not called them spells. I would have not called them cyber wizards, but that's just me. I like a little more difference. If I'm going to combine fantasy and science fiction that way into science fantasy, I'm going to use Star Wars Saga or D20 Dragonstar. That's how I'd be going with it. Now, it's interesting that as each character goes up, you have some choices, but a lot of the things in this are static. So if you go up, for example, you become a second level diplomat. The diplomat gains an additional skill point in negotiation and diplomacy. Flat. That's what you get. This is above and beyond the normal skill points gained for class advancement. So some of the classes have like two choices. Like if you go up to the third level and something, you have a choice between two different options. And depending on which way you take, well, you'll be branching your character in slightly different directions. But this is not for people who like a lot of character options. There aren't a lot of character options as far as within the character class itself. Of course, you can choose to play an explorer. You could choose to play a law enforcement, which is, of course, pretty much, you get to play a cop. The nanist, as I mentioned earlier, though they have 10 levels of powers instead of 9, which, kind of makes sense. I never really understood why everything topped that at 9 instead of 10. 10 works much better, particularly if you're going to base the OGL around 20-level characters. There is a scientist. There is a soldier mercenary, which is the the fighter type of the game. And there is a trader. I think the trader is the last class. Correct. Now, since you're using die 6s for higher level characters, for example in combat, you're rolling more than 2 die 6. 2 die 6 is the default. But for example, a 10th level fighter type, the soldier or mercenary, is going to be using 4 die 6s to make their attacks. But it's very similar to D20. You have to beat a target number, your opponent's defense, to hit them. There's a listing of skills, and the skills are almost an exact translation of all the skills available in the OGL, with slight modifications for them to function within a science fiction setting. The way this is edited, I appreciate the font size. There are a lot of things in this I think that could have been condensed. This book could have probably been cut down by a good 20 to 30 pages if you just condense things. Like the character class, the sheets are like just single columns on each page, which I think could have been condensed into a better form or better formatting, and you would have saved some page count, but that's just me. And the powers are exactly what you think they are. Now, for example, they have in here one which is the cyber. They have a magical weapon ability, cyber weapons essentially, that you can use if you're a cyber wizard, and it goes through first through 10th levels, and on each one they give an example of what they mean. Okay, you manifest a melee or a ranged weapon through your psychic ability, through your magical ability, and it functions in every way like a regular weapon of that, and it does a set +1 to attack and +1 per level, and it does a damage factor of 1 per level. They're flat damage levels in these games, so each like a sword does 2, or a greatsword does 3, things like that, which does make things a little easier. You don't have to roll dice, and you don't have to worry about having a whole bunch of different dice. So that is an advantage. Again, all D6 based. You're much more approachable to your average person who is not a gamer. But they give the same example for every single level presented. So you have 10 different entries for cyber weapon 1 through 10, and they use the same weapon example. And I think that was an opportunity where they could have used 10 different examples of different weapons so that the player might have a better grasp of the varieties that were available to them. It's a minor thing, but I think it was a missed opportunity. Then again, you have the nanite packages that you can use, and you can only use so many per day. And then in the back, they discuss things like the actual mechanics, which aren't too long. The member mechanics, like how do you do critical hits, and different things like grappling and stuff like that. You understand. Anyone who's been familiar with the OGL is going to be familiar with this system, flat out. It just uses a D6 version instead of a D20. Now, what I found fascinating about this is at the back, it says, meet the creators, and there's 2 creators. Now, this is the most, I don't know if I want to say honest or downplayed meet the creator blurb I have ever read in anything ever. Joseph Kviz, and again, I apologize if I'm mangling your name, is a hearty young lad living with his mother at the moment. He prefers to chase his dreams among the stars that grow very dimly as he sits in his little dungeon of a room, venturing out only to take part in games and grab the occasional paycheck worth of comics on Wednesdays. Unfortunately for him, he is too much of a procrastinator. That right there just made me stop in my tracks. I have never heard anything written by an author. I don't know if Joseph wrote this himself or his partner wrote it for him, but that was the most self-effacing blurb I have ever read. Now, is this a bad game? No, it's not. It's very serviceable. If you want to run an OGL-style science fiction game, you don't want to use a D20 system, you want to use a D6-based mechanic, this game has got you covered. I think the alien races are a little odd, and again, the concept of blasting air out of a set of nipples on your chest just seems strange to me. But I won't fault other people who think that's really cool. I just think they could have tightened it up. They could have made the book a little smaller. They could have maybe expanded the whole universe a little more than they did. You got a good idea of the races, but not a lot of background on the universe itself, in my opinion. It left a little to the imagination, which is good in some ways and bad in others. I guess I would have liked a little more background. This fell below my margin. I don't want a huge amount of background, but I want some. But I can't say this is a bad game. I also am not going to put it on my list of top 10 games. I am going to put it on my list of, if you are looking for an alternative to the D20 mechanic within the OGL sphere, this is probably one of the better renditions I've ever seen. I know that there are options within the OGL for using 3 die 6 instead of using a die 20 to give you a bell curve, a little more than just a random chance of making a roll. I've never run that. I know people who have, and lots more averages, but a lot fewer, end results. So this is going to give you that kind of a bell curve, or slightly less, unless you're a high-level fighter type. So if you like that kind of a mechanic, this game may be something that you're interested in. So it's reasonably priced. It's available through Amazon. So if this sounds like it's something that you are interested in, go check it out.